The alarm ripped through the station before I could even lift the first bite to my mouth. Red lights spun across the walls of the maintenance corridor where I always hid to eat. My hands froze around the ration pouch. On my planet, eating in front of anyone is the most shameful thing a person can do. So every day, I ran to this narrow, dirty hallway behind the human commissary and ate in silence, hoping nobody would ever find me here. But today, silence was gone. The alarm screamed louder, and boots pounded somewhere above me on the upper deck. My name is Vantha, and I am the only member of my species living on Station Meridian. I came here to build peace between my people and the humans, but peace felt very far away in that moment, with red light flashing and my heart pounding sideways in my chest, the way it does only when I am truly afraid. I dropped my food and ran toward the noise, because hiding felt wrong when something dangerous was happening so close to me. The corridor outside the commissary was full of running people. A woman with short brown hair grabbed my arm and shouted that the outer hull had been hit by debris, that a section near the cargo bay was losing pressure fast. I did not know this woman, but her fear was clear enough without words. I followed the crowd, my long legs moving faster than most humans could manage, until I reached the cargo bay doors. That is where I saw him for the first time. A man was pulling a heavy metal panel across a growing crack in the wall alone while sparks flew past his face. He was shouting orders to two other workers, telling them to grab clamps and hold the panel steady. His name, I would later learn, was Dorian. He did not look like someone in charge. He looked like someone who had simply decided in that exact second that he was not going to let anyone die on his watch. I ran to him and grabbed the other side of the panel without thinking. He looked at me with wide eyes, surprised to see an alien standing beside him in the middle of a crisis, but he did not waste time asking questions. He shouted for me to push left, and I pushed left. Together, with two other workers holding clamps in place, we sealed the crack just as an emergency team arrived with a proper repair unit. When the alarm finally stopped, the silence felt strange, almost too calm after so much noise. My hands were shaking, not from fear anymore, but from the strength it had taken to hold that panel steady. Dorian sat down on a crate, breathing hard, and looked over at me. "You didn't have to do that," he said, "but thank you." I did not know what to say. On my planet, we do not often work side by side with strangers in danger. We are taught to protect ourselves first. Yet something in me had moved before I could think about it, and I still did not understand why. "I am glad the station did not break apart," I said, which felt like a very small thing to say after what had just happened. He laughed, a tired laugh, but a real one. "Same, that would have ruined my whole week." Word spread quickly through the station about what happened in the cargo bay. People I had never spoken to before nodded at me in the hallways. Some even smiled. It was strange to feel noticed after months of trying so hard to stay invisible. I still returned to my hiding place to eat, because old habits do not disappear just because one crisis is over. But something had shifted inside me, even if I could not yet name it. 3 days later, Dorian found me in that same maintenance corridor, holding a flat box that smelled warm and rich, unlike anything I had eaten before. "I heard you eat alone here every day," he said, leaning against the wall across from me. "That sounds lonely. I brought pizza. Thought you might want company, even if you don't want to share the food." I stared at him, unsure what to say. My people do not invite others to watch us eat. It is considered deeply uncomfortable, almost frightening, to have someone see the private motions our mouths make while eating. I told him this as plainly as I could, expecting him to leave. Instead, he simply turned around, facing the wall instead of me. "There. I won't look. I'll just sit here and eat my slice while you eat yours. Nobody's watching anybody." I sat there for a long moment, staring at the back of his head, unsure if this strange gesture was kindness or foolishness. Perhaps it was both. Slowly, carefully, I opened my ration pouch and ate while he talked to the wall about how the pizza on this station was never as good as the pizza from wherever he grew up. I did not fully understand his stories, but I found comfort in the sound of his voice, filling the silence I usually sat in alone. The next day he came back, and the day after that. Each time he turned his back so I could eat without shame, while he told me about his childhood, his friends, and the small mistakes he had made while learning to fix machines on the station. I began looking forward to that corridor in a way I never had before. One afternoon, I finally worked up the courage to let him see me eat. It happened without warning. I forgot to wait until he turned around, and when I looked up, startled, he was simply eating his own slice, watching me with no fear in his eyes at all. "You're not turning away," I said, both nervous and relieved. "Why would I? You're just eating lunch," he said, shrugging like it was the simplest thing in the world. "Everybody's gotta eat, Vantha." I felt something loosen inside my chest, a tightness I had carried since arriving on this station months earlier. For the first time, sharing a meal with someone did not feel like exposing a hidden part of myself. It felt like being seen, and somehow, that no longer scared me. Weeks passed, and Dorian and I kept meeting in that corridor, sharing meals and stories, until one evening station command noticed how often we sat on the same broken bench near the cargo bay, and moved us to an actual table by the window in the main commissary. I remember how nervous I felt walking into that room, knowing that everyone there would watch me eat for the very first time. But nobody stared. Or if they did, I did not notice because I was too focused on the warmth of the food in front of me and the sound of Dorian's laughter across the table. He argued loudly and without shame that pineapple belonged on pizza, while two other workers at a nearby table shouted their disagreement. I laughed along with them, the sound strange and new coming from my own throat, but it felt good. That same week, another emergency struck the station, smaller than the first but still frightening. A fire broke out near the engine room, and once again, people ran through the halls in panic. This time, I did not hesitate. I ran toward the danger instead of away from it, because I had learned something important from Dorian in those quiet lunches we shared. Courage was not the absence of fear. It was choosing to stand beside someone else, even when everything inside you wanted to run. We worked together again, passing fire-suppressant canisters down a line of workers until the flames were finally out. My hands were shaking afterward, just as they had the first time, but Dorian squeezed my shoulder and told me I had done well. Hearing those words from him meant more to me than I expected. That night we sat together in the commissary, exhausted but safe, sharing a simple meal in comfortable silence. I thought about the corridor where I used to hide, the shame I used to feel, and how far I had come since then. I thought about my grandmother, who once told me that a stranger who watches you eat has seen the most vulnerable part of who you are. She meant it as a warning, but sitting there with Dorian, I understood it differently. Sometimes, letting someone see that vulnerable part of yourself is not dangerous at all. Sometimes, it is the beginning of something good. Months later, when new alien recruits arrived on the station, nervous and unsure, hiding in corners just as I once did, I found myself walking toward them with a warm box of food in my hands. I sat down across from a young SS Gavir girl who reminded me so much of myself, and I did exactly what Dorian had once done for me. I turned my back so she could eat without shame, and I began to talk, filling the silence with stories, giving her the same gift that had once been given to me. She did not answer right away, but I did not mind waiting. Some things take time to trust, and I had learned that the best kindness often arrives quietly, without demanding anything in return. As I sat there, listening to her slowly begin to eat behind me, I realized something simple but true. Loneliness does not always end with big speeches or grand moments. Sometimes, it ends with a warm box of food, a turned back, and someone patient enough to wait until you are ready to be seen. And that, more than any alarm, any fire, or any crisis we had survived together, was the bravest thing I had ever witnessed on this station.